The unit roster for the scintillating soldiers of Slaanesh has been revealed. In this video, we'll go over who will be recruitable by this playable faction in Total War Warhammer 3 and help you decide which Chaos God to champion first. Hint, if you like speed and power with a side of sadism and leather stockings, Slaanesh has got you covered. The God of Destruction excels at sowing discontent with hit-and-run tactics, buffing and debuffing anything too big to tackle alone before polishing off isolated enemies with a final blow. Few see them coming, but everyone knows where they've been by the mess they leave behind. On the campaign map, factions devoted to Slaanesh spread their hedonistic message through a variety of mechanics I giggled so hard about last time that I couldn't even get through them, so let's try again. Lords and heroes can impart gifts of Slaanesh by defeating enemy characters in battle or through hero actions, slapping them with negative effects that can only be treated by divine antibiotics. Prior to a battle, enemy units can be seduced into switching sides for that battle, and during the battle, Slaaneshi armies can capture devotees that can then be used for creating cults, disciple armies, or even forcing vassalage on factions. Which, that is really freaking cool. I mean, the seduction mechanic in particular, where you have a unit switch over to your side for a battle, is new to Total War and sounds incredibly useful and fun to try. And leading your armies in battle will be Nikari, the Arch-Tempter, who will be Slaanesh's chosen legendary lord at the game's launch. A notorious and ancient keeper of secrets, the name for Slaanesh's chosen demons, Nikari scourges the realms to experience ecstasy in its purest form, which tells me Nikari doesn't visit many rave parties. On the battlefield, Nikari is extremely fast and vicious and excels at hunting down isolated characters and units and pounding them into submission. Nikari's unique passive ability, Harvester of Souls, heals them whenever an enemy unit has been sufficiently snoo-snooed. Whilst Nikari's Willing Prey ability, that undoubtedly targets the underaged, because who isn't when you're millennia old, reduces enemy melee defense and attack while leaving them open to a beautiful, agonizing little death. And I love that Nikari's design keeps the purple tight pants of the other Keepers of Secrets, but makes sure to wear out the knees, because how else could you show your dedication to servicing Slaanesh? Also, deadass. For Slaaneshi lords, you get the Exalted Keeper of Secrets, imperious, languid, and depraved in all the best ways. The Exalted Keeper captivates the mind of its foes even as it tears the flesh from their bones. These towering despoilers go through men faster than a middle-aged stripper, using a fury of deadly piercing attacks to cut through armor and poke holes in condoms. Each is a sorcerer capable of alluring their foes or utterly destroying them with magic, no matter how many of their foes' friends tell them that's not really a keeper, it's an exalted demon of Slaanesh who wants to eat their soul. They can specialize in either the lore of shadows or the lore of Slaanesh, which, if you haven't seen the breakdown of all the new magic lores and spells coming in Warhammer 3, click the link on the screen, and remember that you were at the part where I compared an age-old demon to a bad one-night stand. Interestingly, it's been revealed that all exalted demons recruited by the Chaos Gods cannot be directly recruited into the campaign. You'll first have to level up a Herald for each of the Chaos Gods, then choose to exalt them when the opportunity arises. It was a footnote in the blog, but really has huge implications for gameplay that have not been discussed. The Herald of Slaanesh is an ascended demonet and sorceress of seduction. They're among the fastest and most powerful of Slaanesh's courtesans, because you have to be when catering to all of the Dark Prince's kinky whims. The Heralds are proficient in either the lore of shadows or the lore of Slaanesh, and the Herald can focus on either grace, swiftness, or beguilement to further specialize their role. Grace is a physical resist ward save, swiftness improves speed and charges, and beguilement is a hex that reduces enemy leadership and defense. Most notably, though, the Heralds have the passive ability Devastating Flanker, which doubles the charge bonus when you attack someone from the side or rear. And you're gonna hear that word a lot, Devastating Flanker, so just remember, if you're fighting Slaanesh, they like to get you from behind and not offer a reach around. In battle, Heralds mount the Steeds of Slaanesh, Seeker Chariots, Exalted Seeker Chariots, and anyone that can hold a basketball with one hand. For Slaaneshi heroes, we get the Alluris, a demonet who has gained the notice of Slaanesh, and he now casts an eye upon their especially alluring routine involving a feather boa and python. As a Demonet with exalted aspirations, they play the same role on the battlefield as the Heralds of Slaanesh, wielding the lores of Shadow and Slaanesh alongside the same Locus abilities of Grace, Swiftness, and Beguilement that further enhance their natural talents. They also get the same mount options and the flanker abilities like the Heralds as well. Your other hero will be the Cultists of Slaanesh, who spend their time seducing others in the Dark Prince's name. While skilled melee fighters, they're better suited to spread their legs and hedonistic message on the campaign map. Their hero actions can be used against other enemy settlements, or they can be used to set up one of 4 Slaaneshi cults, each providing a different buff. In battle, they get Devastating Flanker as well as other unique abilities and can, of course, mount steeds. When it comes to units, normally these roster reveals begin with Infantry, but with Slaanesh, it's all about the Cavalry and Chariots, because you should always be pounding that back door. Seekers of Slaanesh are the outriders of the demonic host, lithe with muscular limbs and a long, poisonous tongue, as well as several pairs of breasts for undisclosed reasons. A single caress from a steed's tongue is enough to drive anyone into a deathly rapture. Ridden by Demonets, this elite demonic shock cavalry has the unique Soul Scent ability that increases armor-piercing damage and melee attack. It activates whenever they're near a unit with wavering morale because they can smell fear. It smells like urine and feces. Fear doesn't smell nice. Hellstriders are vain mortals granted immortal powers, at the cost of everything because they are permanently glued to the saddles once they mount up. They ride their demonic steeds of Slaanesh into battle and use either spears or Hellscourge whips. They're also Slaanesh's only shielded cavalry unit, but as their entry tier, don't expect much out of them in battle except Vanguard deployment. Seeker Chariots, known as the Machinery of Blissful Pain, dispense suffering with capering Demonets at the rein, specifically designed to dispense maximum agony for anyone caught in their grinding axles. Like everything else, they have devastating flanker. The steeds give poison, and despite CA insisting they can hold their own in extended combat, they're chariots, and you should all know better. Hellflayers of Slaanesh are chariots with extra barbs added on. The suffering of anyone caught under the wheels drives its riders into a rapturous frenzy, but it's not all concerningly timed orgasms, as anyone cursed to drive Hellflayer machines will spend millennia feeding the gardens of Slaanesh, which is a euphemism as subtle as a Georgia O'Keeffe painting. In battle, Hellflayers get devastating flanker, soul scent, and their steeds bring their usual poison attacks. The most potent variant of cavalry, though, is the Exalted Seeker Chariot, pulled by the might of 4 steeds with extra blades and hooks added on, because Slaanesh is all about excess, and anyone that escapes the blades will undoubtedly find themselves killed by their Demonet riders instead. It's a giant single-entity unit closer to a Combine Harvester than a Roman war machine, with poison attacks, flanker, and perfect vigor so that they'll never tire and never stop chasing you until you are dead. For infantry, the lowest option is Chaos Furies, which are getting increasingly annoying to talk about as they never have their own slide. They fly, have Vanguard deployment, and shouldn't even be in the infantry category, but since CA switched riders in the middle of a press cycle, it's a wonder we even get these at all anymore. Marauders of Slaanesh are the mightiest of Norskins who delight in the suffering of others and find rapture in sundered flesh, which is 90% of Scandinavia if you replace sundered flesh with a good book and meatballs. The weapons of Marauders have melded into their flesh and have become sentient in Slaanesh's service. They normally wield either a sword, spear, or whip variant, and are immune to psychology, and as Slaanesh's only shielded frontline units, you're gonna be seeing a lot of them. Demonets are the hypnotic dancing foot soldiers of Slaanesh, who shred their enemies with sharpened crab claws and drink in the euphoria of their pain like extras in Hellraiser. Although they're clearly unarmored, they work well with Marauders in the early game as attack units, depending on their high speed and the devastating flanker ability to get around enemies and cut into them. Exalted Demonets have gained the eye of the Dark Prince and now gather souls to entertain him with their shiny baubles. They'll do that with the flanker and soul scent abilities and are better than regular Demonets in every way that matters, and will undoubtedly be further enhanced by modders to have D-cups within hours of the game's release. For For monsters and beasts, you'll find Keepers of Secrets. Keepers are the masters of pain and the mistresses of sensation, a graceful, fast, and deadly single-entity unit that have access to the spells from the lore of Slaanesh. And with their unparalleled mix of speed and weapon strength alongside Flanker, Blissful Rapture, and Strider, it means they can run down any foe they find on the battlefield like a Serengeti big cat. Fiends of Slaanesh are scorpion-tailed abominations that run down their victims and hump them to death. Wait, that's their old lore. Now they emit a harsh call and lick them to death. When attacking, they emit a musk that fogs enemies' minds and saps their will to fight, lowering their defense and attack. As usual, they're fast and have devastating flanker. Soul Grinders of Slaanesh are soul grinders, but pink, and with abs you could wash laundry on. Slaanesh's version of these high hit point powerhouses are melee and anti-large specialists. The blog was wrong here, and they don't actually have a ranged attack, because what Slaanesh really needed was another fast monster with armor-piercing melee attacks in his roster. Right, Slaanesh's roster has no ranged units, and except for Chaos Furies, no flying units. Remember the vampire counts from Warhammer 1? It will be a similar playstyle, focusing even further on hit-and-run tactics, with no counter to ranged and flying except to move faster and hit harder. But with no siege weapons or slow units to babysit, you can charge directly at the enemy general and always try and end the battle early. You even get Chariots to raise your aggression and rack up high kills, which is both a blessing and a curse, as Chariots require huge amounts of micro to use appropriately, and Slaanesh fields multiple types of Chariots to make it even harder. If you're in a campaign, you'll probably be playing the entire battle in slow motion anyway to enjoy the Keepers of Secrets and Demonets jiggling their way across the battlefield, so just keep it on slow-mo and plan to drive the Chariots that way as well. Slaanesh brings a very different playstyle, but different doesn't mean weak. In the right hands, you can bet they'll discover new definitions of the word pain, and I, for one, await their release with great anticipation. And that has been the unit roster of Slaanesh. Subscribe to be kept up to date on Total War news, or join the Patreon to support the channel and vote on upcoming noobs guides. I'll be opening the poll for which Warhammer 3 Lord you want to see first in the new year, so don't be shy, and as always, thanks for watching.